With me tonight is Lauren Guidry-Leach. She's the new RPM for the site. Her supervisor is Chris Villarreal. We're with EPA. We also have Terry and Diane from TCEQ and Omar from Texas State Health. And Samson, I'm sorry, Samson.
My name is Samson from Philly. I am going to be taking over this site from Bourne once she goes to maternity leave for a couple months. But, yeah.
Sorry. Do we have any elected officials here tonight? I know we have one. Would you like to speak, sir? Yes, would you like to speak? I'm sorry.
Lawrence Bell, Harris County Precinct 3, Commissioner Tom Randall.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. Raheem Shajan with State Senator Molly Cook's office.
Sorry about that. I didn't see that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Representative Penny Morales Shaw's office is represented here tonight as well. We've heard the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
State Rep. Penny Shaw.
Thank you all for joining us. We're here tonight to update you on the site cleanup activities. That's pretty much all I have to say. Are you ready? Okay. What we would like, everyone, if you could hold your questions till after. We're going to have plenty of time after for everybody so we can answer your questions, okay? Thank you.
Hi everyone, just a reminder, my name is Lauren Guidry-Leach and I am the project manager for the Jones Road Superfund site. So let's jump in. So just briefly going over the outline for tonight, we're going to just give a brief background on the Superfund Authority and the process, background on the Jones Road specific site with all of the response actions. We're going to talk about things that we've done recently, which is water line connections, bioremediation injection results, and sampling results, and then go into what are the next steps EPA is trying to accomplish.
One last thing, I'm sorry. We also have gentlemen here from the MUD. Where are you at, gentlemen? From the MUD? Right here. Right there. Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so what is Superfund? So in 1980, Congress established the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, also known as CERCLA, and then informally known as Superfund. So that's where this that Superfund title comes from. The Superfund program is administered by the EPA in cooperation with state and tribal governments. And then it allows the EPA to clean up hazardous waste and to force responsible parties to perform those cleanups or seek reimbursement for the cleanups led by the EPA. So this diagram we call informally like the candy lane diagram, but it basically just outlines the process that we go through here in Superfund. So you can see there's a lot of parts that go through, and this looks very linear. But actually, it's an iterative process. Like here at Jones Road, we will be conducting a third round of remedial investigation, which is here on the site. So, yeah, it's just basically to demonstrate that this is a long process and it takes a lot of time. So, focusing now in on Jones Road. This is Houston. I don't know if you know that, but here's the 610 loop. Beltway 8, and then Jones Road's up here. I assume you guys all know where it is because we're all here tonight. So focusing in on this black outline here, that is the Superfund site that we call Jones Road Groundwater Plume site. Here, this green dash line is the Texas Department of Licensing and Registration drilling restriction outline. And then in red, this is a Harris County promulgated rule for no new wells, which EPA also uses for their water line service connection area. Okay, so what happened at Jones Road? What's the source of the contamination? This was a dry cleaner site, so formerly it was called Bell Dry Cleaner and operated from 1988 to 2002. and it affected both the soil, the indoor air, and the groundwater at the site. And this is what we call the conceptual site model, but it's basically a simplified diagram to try to demonstrate what's been happening in the subsurface here. So we've broken it up into 4 zones. I believe if you've been to community meeting before, you've seen this diagram, but we have the shallow soil, the shallow water-bearing zone, the deep unsaturated zone, and the deep water-bearing zone. So here at Jones Road, what are the contaminants that we're concerned with? It's really these 5 are contaminants of concern. It's tetrachloroethene, also known as PCE or perchloroethene. It's trichloroethylene or ethene, TCE, cis and trans dichloroethene or DCE, and vinyl chloride, VC. And this diagram here at the bottom is just showing you that the original contaminant released here was PCE, this top one, but we expect this degradation pathway to occur. So PCE breaks down to these contaminants here, to shorter chain chemicals. Okay, this is a really busy slide, and I don't expect you to be able to see everything, but this is basically just trying to outline what EPA and its partners have done at this site. Starting here, we have the operation of the Bell Dry Cleaners, which operated from 1988 to 2002. In 2003, the TCEQ initiated a remedial investigation, and they also at that time provided filtration systems to multiple properties. This was also the year in 2003 that the site was listed on the National Priorities List, which designated it as a Superfund site. And then also in 2003, the Texas Department of Licensing and Registration restricted the drilling in this area. That was that green dash line earlier. So then in 2006 is when Harris County, they promulgated that rule, the no new wells, which is what we also use as our water line service area. In 2010, oops, sorry, I skipped one. I skipped a few. Okay. In 2008, EPA led a time-critical removal action to construct the public water supply that's here within the Jones Road vicinity. And we connected just under 150 properties at that time. In 2009, the TCEQ completed their remedial investigation and feasibility study. And then from that, in 2010, the ROD was signed and the remedy was selected for the site, as well as establishing the cleanup goals. In 2011, the EPA flooded private water wells, and that was associated with the 2008 connection to the public water supply. In 2012, EPA implemented an ISB, which is in situ bioremediation injection, and that's basically where you, if you don't know, inject food-grade material into the subsurface, and that helps the degradation of those products all the way down to the end goal is carbon dioxide in the water. But that diagram I showed where the contaminants move along, that's the goal of this. And so the pilot test was there to try to figure out the scale and the size that we needed to help clean up the site. In 2014, EPA completed a remedy optimization review, and that was basically just looking at all the data that we had and trying to determine how to optimize the site. Where can we focus our efforts to clean up this site as most effectively as possible? In 2016, the EPA implemented the first full-scale in situ bioremediation remedial action, and that was to the shallow groundwater, and that also included pre- and post-sampling event. In 2017, EPA conducted a supplemental remedial investigation and feasibility study. At that time, we also signed a ROD amendment for the source area remedy, which included the soil vapor extraction. And also in 2017, we completed our first 5-year review. In 2018, EPA conducted another time-critical removal action, installing vapor mitigation systems into the shopping center, into the first 3 suites on the west side of the shopping center. EPA also conducted additional hotspot in situ bioremediation injections at that time. In 2019, EPA installed and began operating the SVE system, so that's soil vapor extraction system, And if you don't know, we drilled a bunch of wells underneath the shopping center, and then it's like a vacuum that like sucks out the vapors that are present in the subsurface. In 2021, EPA reviewed and completed the 5-year review addendum for the first 5-year review. And then in 2022, we completed our second 5-year review. In 2023, EPA conducted additional hotspot in situ bioremediation injections at the site. And then lastly, where we are now, 2024, we connected additional properties to that public water supply this year. Okay, so moving right into what we have done recently. So this is the water line connections. We connected 5 properties recently. We started in July and we just finished a couple weeks ago. But that public water supply is provided by the White Oak Bend Municipal Utility District. And this is just a picture from one of the actual residences. And just to go in a little bit about the White Oak Bend comes in, they tap the main line, they put in a water meter box. EPA's contractors excavate a trench, they lay the plumbing line from the water meter to the house, and then they backfill in that trench and then do any restoration required. That's just a little bit about that. So those were 5 properties. Okay, up next, in September of 2023, we completed another round of hotspot in situ bioremediation injection. And this map, it's a busy map, but basically I just wanted to illustrate really that the hotspots were located here around Monitoring Well 2. One south of, this was the original dry cleaner suite right here. So just south of dry cleaner suite right there, Monitoring Well 1, and then a little further south, Monitoring Well 20. So all those red dots were injection. And the ISB generally was effective. It reduced the PCE concentrations in the source area and downgradient to less than 5 micrograms per liter. So the EPA's maximum contaminant level is 5, so it reduced it below that. And from our February 2024 sampling, we confirmed that again, that the PCE at the site remains below the maximum contaminant level of 5. And we continue to perform semi-annual sampling. We just conducted another round in August. We're waiting on those results, but those will be shared once we get those. And then here's a graphical representation of what the in situ bioremediation does. Oops, sorry, pushed the wrong button. This is July 2021 here, and this is February 2024 here. So this is a graph showing the PCE concentration trends. So you can see in Monitoring Well 1 and 20, we have quite elevated PCE concentrations, and you can see that after several of those, the injections, it's gone down. So the last injection was just right in here, so we've reduced it even further. Okay, moving into the groundwater sampling results from February 2023. Also another really busy slide, but I just wanted to demonstrate the exceedances that we did have here at Jones Road. So this first table is showing the shallow water bearing zone. So these are all our monitoring wells that are in the shallow. And if we just focus here on the yellow, we can see that we had 2 monitoring wells on site, Monitoring Well 20 and 22, that had exceedances in cis 1,2-DCE and also vinyl chloride. And I have maps. We'll go in and see where those are spatially as well. And then the next table shows the deep water bearing zones. So these are also monitoring wells, but they're in the deeper zones. And you can see we have 1 well with elevated exceedances in PCE. We also had 2 wells, monitoring wells with exceedances for vinyl chloride. And then this last table at the bottom, excuse me, these are the private water wells that we've sampled for this event, and you can see that 3 of the wells that we sampled also had exceedances for PCE. I will note at this time that if you see this U designation here, you see it everywhere, that basically means undetect or non-detect, the lab, the instruments in the lab, only have the capability to test for concentrations at a certain threshold. And so at that time when they sampled it, they didn't detect anything below that threshold. So we designate that as non-detect. Okay, this is the first map, and this is of PCE. So this is just showing PCE. So everywhere there's a white box is where a sample occurred, and it has an associated well, which I don't expect you to be able to see here. But where I've highlighted those boxes in red, that is where we are seeing exceedances. So you can see these are those 3 residential wells we have in the community, and then we have one just down gradient of this site, monitoring well 26. So here's same map, but this map is showing SIS-12DC. So those the next table with the exceedances. And you can see the only exceedances we had here were on site. This was for monitoring well 20 and 22. And then lastly, this is for vinyl chloride. Those same 2 monitoring wells on site had exceedances. And then we have 1 monitoring well to the west. I believe this is monitoring well 12, and then monitoring well 16. So moving from the groundwater results into the vapor results. Again, sorry for the busyness, but if we look down here at this bottom table first, these are residential samples. These are homeowners who have given us access to sample their indoor air. And you can see here for both the outdoor air around our properties and the indoor air, we did not have any exceedances over the regional screening levels. And then this upper table is for the suites that are at the shopping center. So first you look at indoor air, we didn't have any exceedances here. Indoor air, we also didn't have any exceedances. And then we did have 1 exceedance in sub-slabs, so that is, if you have your concrete slab here, that's taking a sample actually below the slab. So again, another busy map, but basically here's the shopping center, this Carpenter Square structure, and we took samples in this first suite, this second suite, third suite, this corner suite here, and then all the way south in this suite. And the exceedance that we saw was right here in this suite, which was the former dry cleaner suite. And that was for sub-slab. So what are some things to note from the sampling event, I guess, is the variations in the groundwater and the vapor concentrations we can really attribute most likely to 2 reasons. The first is that soil vapor extraction system was shut down between September 2023 to March /April 2024, and that's that that big vacuum that's sucking the vapors before they can get up to that slab. And that was shut off for 2 reasons. The first was we were conducting those ISB, those in situ bioremediation injections in September 23. So it got shut off for that because we didn't want to pull out what we were already injecting. We needed that to stay. And then also after the big freeze storm here, I forget what year it was, we had a bunch of damage to our SV system, so we started winterizing it.
You want to like all the way off?
It's better for me too, perfect. Okay, so for 2 reasons. So the system usually gets shut down in the winter to prevent any kind of freeze damage. We also, another factor for these variations is reductive decoordination. And that's basically just going through the breakdown from PC to all of its daughter products, all the products that come after it. And that's something we expect to see and as a product of those in situ bioremediation injection. Lastly, the indoor air concentrations indicate that the vapor mitigation systems in those first 3 suites are working as designed, and we didn't see any exceedances within the suites that we tested or in the indoor air. All right, so what is EPA doing next? The big thing we're doing is we're about to start another supplemental groundwater remedial investigation and feasibility study. We're about to start that hopefully here in in the fall. This will include additional wells, as many as 15, additional sampling for groundwater and vapor intrusion, which includes outdoor air, indoor air, subslab and soil and gas samples. This will also include extensive 3D visualization and analysis. So we're going to be taking all of the data that already exists, and we're going to be compiling that data and using it to build a really thorough model of what's happening in the subsurface. And then we're also going to be reevaluating the feasibility of that selected remedy from that 2010 ROD decision, where we want to make sure that what we're selecting is actually what's going to work for the site. And then some ongoing things that EPA is continuing to do. As mentioned before, we continue to do semi-annual sampling events, and then we are continuing to operate the SV system. It's currently operational today, and we're going to continue to evaluate the effectiveness to see how long the system needs to continue to run. So again, here's my contact information. It's also on the website, which is just, if you Google EPA Jones Road Superfund, it pops right up. And then again, our community involvement coordinator is Jason Tenney, who's in the back. And then I'll open up for questions.
So let me hear your question.
I was hoping to go back to the slides which talked about the detection of vinyl chloride, and I was hoping we could see a little better where that is exactly, what streets roughly. And then I also had a question about a slide previously about roughly where private well A, F, and G would be. This, one more forward. One more forward. That one right there. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
I live in the neighborhood directly to the west, a little bit to the west in Tower Oaks, and that's out of the zone. And then roughly, if you go back a few slides, private wells A, F, and G, if you know roughly where those are located?
Yeah, those are these.
Those are those right there. Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we can't,
No, obviously not.
Lisa Dawson, I want to thank you for having this community meeting, and also appreciate that this is a site where you don't have a responsible party with dollars. So I appreciate the remedial steps that EPA has come and done. I had a very specific question. You have referred to air and the air as regional screening levels. I'm curious exactly what standards those are. Are those the state ESLs? I'm not familiar with exactly what that would be referring to.
okay, yeah, those are the screening levels set by the EPA, and we have regional screening levels for industrial commercial. Here for indoor air, we also have regional screening levels for indoor air. Chris, do you want to elaborate on that anymore?
Sure. In Superfund, everything we do is risk-based, so regional screening levels are set at levels that are protective for all types of exposure. Residential, we said, we look at cancer and non-cancer impacts. So these values are set or based on lifetimes of exposure for the most sensitive receptors. So if you don't tip the screening level, you're gold. Those are good values for us. They're well below any minimum level we'd ever have. They're based on toxicology. There's tables that we have in EPA, go RSLs, regional screening levels will come up. They're based on different exposure scenarios, but for these, they're based on residential and commercial. I mean, the different numbers, though, they're kind of a threshold number. If we don't chip those, we're good. So we're always below that. That's a good indication for us for that.
Gentlemen, sir? Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question. You were talking about doing 3D modeling. Are you what data are you going, that's nice to talk about 3D modeling, but it's only as good as the data you slap into it. Will you be using the via well data that they have collected? And I think there was a university, was it Baylor or something was going around doing some testing. Is this going to be comprehensive, or are you just going to be pick and select specific wells that you like and look at those? Or are you going to be looking at all the wells?
Yeah, I think the goal is to incorporate all of the data collected by the EPA.
Only the EPA?
Unfortunately, we cannot verify like the methodology used outside of the EPA, so that is why that data probably would not be incorporated. I think it's UCMD also.
Hi, I'm Christy with the Texas Health and Environment Alliance. I'm an environmental outreach coordinator, and I appreciate you coming out this evening. Part of our mission is ensuring that the community is informed of what is happening at the site. In 2017, the EPA headquarters acknowledged that the Superfund site lacked information to determine if the local community was being exposed. Despite not enough information to determine where the contamination was and how people might be exposed, the EPA stated people should at least be notified through institutional controls. In 2022, the EPA had enough information for headquarters to designate this site as not protective of human health or the environment due to the risk of exposure through contaminated groundwater and toxic vapors in the air. The EPA again acknowledged property owners should be notified, but did not give a deadline to accomplish this until 2026. This is simply unacceptable. The hazards at this site are not new information. There is no possible excuse for taking a decade to simply get notification system in place and functioning. Can you please provide us with a better understanding of how the EPA justifies taking so long to notify the community about this threat?
Let me try to answer that. That designation was from that 5-year review that we do. We do that every 5 years. Once we start doing remedial action under project, once we start doing construction, that starts to trigger them to do these 5-year reviews. So now until we're done, we do these 5-year reviews. So we made that determination based on the fact that we recognize that the groundwater is contaminated in this area. We've tried to, where people we know that wells that are impacted, we certainly communicate that information to residents. We certainly offer that anytime. If anybody's interested in having their well sampled or their indoor air sampled, we're happy to get your information and include you as part of that ongoing investigation. As far as institutional controls, those are legal mechanisms that we have to place on properties. They're very difficult to place. We need the agreement of the property owner to do that. They include surveys of the property. Basically, you have to have data that demonstrates that that person's property is impacted. So we need the data, we need the indoor air data, practically collected, the subslab data, the groundwater data. We're happy to collect that information and take action as appropriate. We can't place a restriction on a property without information to support that. So we recognize that at Jones Road, there's people out here that have wells that they're using for consumption. Again, we're out here, we're going to collect additional data. We're happy to collect data from your well. We're part of that other study, the university study, and your well is sampled by them, not by us. We'd be happy to collect that data. Again, when we collect data, it's important for us to know that there's certain data quality. The laboratory, follow the procedures they're supposed to do as far as calibrating their instruments. Was there proper chain of custody on the samples that were collected? Were the samples collected appropriately? These preservatives, all these things we have to be sure of to demonstrate that the data that we're looking at is real. We're looking at levels of parts per billion or lower. So it's very, data is something, it takes us a while. We validate all our data sets. So we're happy to look at the data collected by the university or the medical civil community. But we also need to know that the data is demonstratively is validated, and we can use that data to take action on it. And again, we're happy to collect data from anybody's residence as part of the waterline area. Again, as far as designating ICs, again, we need the agreement from the property owner to do that. We can't do that unilaterally. So on properties that are impacted, we certainly let the property owner know. We offer them the opportunity to hook up to private water. if we demonstrated they had a vapor intrusion problem, we'd certainly look to put on a vapor mitigation system on their residence. I'm not sure, I'm sure I didn't answer all your questions.
Is this going to answer his question? Is this going to clarify that? Or do you have a different question?
I can go on.
So, I just want to understand part of what you just said. Is it possible that you all are considering, are you able to validate the data from the other source, Baylor, or whatever the source is? Is that something within your scope of what you're able to do, is to work on validating their data? I just didn't understand if there's a pathway forward to do that.
Yeah, I can definitely check further into that, and depending on what we find, I guess that would be the answer. But it would require a lot of information about how the data was collected, how the data was handled, the process, how the data was, what instrumentation. But if you're willing to provide that information, we can definitely look into it.
It might be good to that it's already provided, and so maybe you just have to look and see what it's already there.
Okay.
Next question.
Yeah, I've got some technical questions on the vapor extraction system. Is that from, you said there's many points that you've got under the retail center, and you're pulling it into one sort or one draw, and how shallow are your extraction lines?
Yeah, so we actually have, we have a shallow system set up and we have a deep system. So that's why when I said we restarted it, I had March and April, because we restarted the shallow system first, and then we restarted the deep system second.
Right, now what's the groundwater depth that are you pulling up a lot of water vapor from your deeper
We
system?
do pull water, yeah, and we process it through that system. And then after we test the water before, then we re-inject it back.
So you're reinjecting the treated water back to
Treated
the
water.
site.
Yeah.
And then do you test the vapor coming out of your stack?
That I'm not sure. I'm
I
sure.
mean, is it going through a charcoal?
Yeah, it goes through a GAC system,
Are you
so
meeting
granulated.
county regulations, I guess?
Yeah, of course.
Emissions.
It goes through granulated, activated carbon.
Right, yeah,
filters.
exactly. So now when you shut it down, you're going to have a rebound effect. You can look for that.
Yeah, that's something that I'm currently working with our contractors to evaluate. We are trying to figure out how long the system needs to continue to operate, especially, we have data to support it, so we're looking into that, and we'll operate it as long as we need.
Right, and what would you say your radius of influence is from that?
That's a very technical question.
I
I'm
know.
not sure if I can answer that one.
I know, that's what
But I can look into it, can talk to our contractors, and if you want to leave your contact.
I'm just curious at how much you know about the system.
Okay.
Because I've used it myself.
Hi, Pamela Bonta. I am boots on the ground in the contaminated area. One thing that's a fact, there are new wells that are going in on the tear down houses. They're putting up new houses. There are wells going in around that area. So you might want to start walking the streets a little more. Also, my question to you, if you're aware of Mud 62 that's supplying Barwood, they have put in a new super heavy-duty well, and it is pulling that water that way, because that well is which would be to the west. So that's just something for you guys to know. My question to you is, it's my understanding you've only tested in Ground Zero the first 3 units for vapors. Have you tested any of the other units in that strip plaza for safety? You're willing to put in vapor extraction systems in homes around the area. Why wouldn't you be willing to do it at Ground Zero for the people that work there every day and go there to eat and do things?
Yeah, so if you look at this map, you're right here. The first 3 suites, and those have vapor mitigation system. We've also collected a sample in this corner suite here, as well as this suite here. I know our contractors go out and They attempt to get access to the suites, but they're not always successful. But the data that we do have from these suites that are outside of phase 3 shows that we do not have any exceedances above those regional screening levels.
Okay, thank you.
You ready? Yeah. Thank you. Could you go back to the last slide? No, one after that. Toward the end. Yes, next steps. What would be extremely helpful with next steps if you could provide timelines? For example, you could say additional wells. Well, X goes in one a date and then the completion date. One of the things that I've noticed, and I've not only been briefly on this, addressing this project, is that there's a lack of timeline. So the next question is this a forever project?
Well, let me address your first question and we'll do that one. So we're planning to award this contract really soon. We're currently in negotiations with contractors. So we're hopeful that we will get something secured and we can start in fall of 2024. This contract goes through 2028. So, but that also includes a lot of other things. So I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, we will be putting monitoring wells in, additional wells, and we will start as soon as next year collecting additional sampling. But one thing I'll add is, in order for us to have a really robust data set, we would need access to people's property, and that's from the EPA, that's an access agreement. And it's basically just a paper that you sign saying you give EPA access or contractors permission to come onto your site and sample either your well or your indoor air or the soil around your house.
Excuse me, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Based on that, so when is the end date?
So it's a remedial investigation, so it will have an end date, but right now let's say it's like 2028. If I had to put it to there, that's when our contract ends. But it could extend beyond that.
Okay, and again, it would be a great help if we can have some timelines. And I know timelines can move, but at least the residents and the county would have an idea of when things will be accomplished.
Okay.
And one final question. Are there any KPIs on this project? Key performance indicators that's...
I don't know if do we use KPI?
With our contracting with EPA takes a while. Just to place a government contract, it takes us a while, but there's a lot of people involved in it, and then securing funds for that. There are currently the other contractors that are about to bid on this project have been vetted before they can bid on the project. So we do a lot of checks, and then we evaluate. We just received proposals, and we evaluate the contractor's qualifications to do the work, and now we're engaged in negotiations to award the work. So there's a lot of quality we have to look for, and the work people that do the work for us. So again, I'm not exactly familiar with KPI kind of terminology.
Yes. I want to know if Lasky Elementary, Lyle, all the children that go here, and decades, were they in danger of the water system? That we all live in this area. Site Fair should have been notified with the water contaminant. I worked in this school, 20 years ago. Were we in danger at that time?
This boundary right here in red, this is what's designated that water line or no new wells area.
Where is Lyle? Where is? That's
Yeah,
going down Jones
it's
Road.
like up here somewhere, northeast.
So we were not in danger. The children coming here, we're not in danger.
We don't see any influence from these contaminants outside of this boundary.
Have you tested outside of that boundary?
We do have some data outside of that boundary.
To the north?
Up to you.
The west?
Yes,
I don't have the boundary superimposed on this slide, but you can see we do have some samples that are outside of that boundary here.
Right, because I see you do have some north.
South here.
So once you find it hit north, would you be willing to continue to go? Keep going until you stop getting hits?
I think the further away,
water moves.
Yeah, water does move, and that's a great point, is we know that water isn't moving north. I do have some backup slides for this. So there's 3 of these potentiometric maps for the shallow. We have 3 zones that we designated, but you can see here, most likely due to the influence of the SV system, the hydraulic gradient is moving into the site, so water is moving into the site here. This is that surface, the deeper water bearing zone, so this is about 60 to 225 feet below ground surface. And you can see we still have influence from those deeper SV wells here. That's actually acting as a semi-hydraulic containment. And then lastly, if you go even deeper, so this is 240 to 300 feet below ground surface, you can see that the groundwater is actually moving to the Gulf, so southeast. And so we don't really have any data to support the movement of contamination north. The geology also dips generally to the Gulf as well, which this contaminant can sink below groundwater. So yeah, we at this time, I don't really have data to support it.
So my understanding is you're just testing in the Chico aquifer, you're not going to the Evangeline aquifer?
Yeah, so we primarily are focused in the Chico aquifer that is more shallow, and that is the source of the aquifer for these drinking water wells. We don't have any wells that go below 400 feet BGS, which would be in the Evangeline aquifer. And I would pause before we put anything in there, because we don't also want to add any conduits for the contamination to migrate down as well.
Thank you. My name is Jackie Metcalf, and I'm the founder and executive director of Texas Health and Environment Alliance. We're a local nonprofit organization that works to engage and educate local community members. I know many of you here tonight, but there's a lot of you that I don't know. If you're an area resident, would you raise your hand so we can get an idea of how many folks are from the actual surrounding communities here? Yeah? Okay, sorry, I'm not speaking clear. So, thank you for that. Many people who come to this area come here because there's larger lots, there were once pristine water wells, that people come here to, fulfill the American dream and believe they're doing something good to come and raise their family. And then they hear that there might be a silent hazard in their community, an invisible, a tasteless, an odorless threat in their community. And that's really why PHEA does what it does. And we received a question recently from a community member that says, PHEA says one thing and the EPA says something else. Who's correct? So tonight during the presentation, the information was presented in a way, in my opinion, that could downplay what people might be concerned about. So the language, that the results were at safe levels and that there were no exceedances, but that doesn't mean that you didn't find anything. And in areas there have been exceedances of what is legally, the legal limit for some of these contaminants. And You know, I know when I was pregnant, I didn't go door to door with my team because I know about the health threats of even the vapors coming up from the ground. And I couldn't knowingly expose my unborn child to that. And there are very real and serious health consequences to low level exposure, particularly over a lifetime. So if there's a disconnect, it's because we are going off of what can cause adverse health effects and long-term low-level exposure. So my question, I have a couple, but I know others have questions. So you mentioned exceedances from the February 2024 testing in the private groundwater wells. Again, that's something also to note, you know, where here at Ground Zero, it's shallow, what you're talking about, but in the neighborhood, it's the deeper contamination that's where many are pulling groundwater from that doesn't have any remediation at this time. So there were 3 exceedances in February 2024, but how many actual wells were tested?
I believe it was 9 that were tested. 9 residential wells.
9.
Well, we had access to the sound.
So a third of them.
No, private monitor wells, there's private wells. So all of those wells were sound. We had 9 access agreements for private sample residential wells. And we'll sample anybody who can use wells, give us access.
I can't echo that enough. Another question I have, with this being an orphan Superfund site, is part of the reason why this takes so long. I understand Superfund takes a long time, but I'm used to the polluter dragging it out, and here we don't have a polluter. I'm wondering if the funding is part of what the issue is in taking this so long, and has the EPA exhausted all potentially responsible parties?
So I can answer part of that question. So the responsible parties, yes, we pursued enforcement actions back when the site was listed, and we did get some money from the property owner at that time, not the dry cleaner who was renting. But yeah, we have exhausted all of that. That's done right at the start when it's listed on the NPL. And then
As far as budget, we get our money, we're federal agencies, so we get it from the government, we get our annual budgets. It was recently passed, some recent legislation, we authorized the tax. So the tax that was reinstituted, again, would get us another source of revenue to fund the Superfund projects. We do get the tax money from the national tax law, I think it's oil and gas and other chemicals. So we have that. And then we also get appropriations from Congress, like every other federal agency. So there's budget talks, we get money every year for the budget. So on projects that we've started, construction or remedial action, we continue to fund those. The other part of the pipeline, the front end part, the investigations, the designs, that's from that's called that pipeline. And again, we're just about to award a contract for the next several years to investigate this project. Over $2 million budgeted for that work. We've set aside money for this project to do that work. When projects are funded as far as like SP systems, those remediation systems, once those start, we continue to fund those. Those just get funded every year. It's not always a guarantee with the upfront stuff. But on this project, we budgeted over $2 million to do the next phase of investigation. So for this project, we have money.
Thank you,
It's
Chris.
also-
Thank y'all again for being
It's
here.
also one of the Build Back Better sites.
Well, that bill, there was a bill, called a bill project, there was some recent legislation that gave the federal government, EPA, $1.5 billion to do Superfund projects. And we used all that money all over the country to do work on some projects that had to be used funding. That money's is about done, we're gone, that money's been spent. But we did reappropriate the tax, and we are getting money. And again, this project is funded. We have funding for this project. That's not the case for all projects.
Next question, please.
Hey, sample wells that y'all put in on the west side of this protected area, How deep were they?
Like this well here?
Like rail on the outside of the drainage ditch?
So the drainage is here, maybe this one. Sorry. This drainage ditch here, this north-south one?
No, it's north and south, yes, on the west edge of that subdivision.
There's a monitoring well here, and there's a monitoring well here. These two are on the east side. This is the only one. I'll have to check, I don't know off the top of my head, but I think, I don't want to misspeak, so let me just double check. There's lots of wells.
There's also one further down.
No, yeah, they wouldn't be super shallow. It would probably be in the upper hundreds to 250s, maybe down to 300 feet would be my, if I'm remembering correctly. I can check right after this. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight, Chris and Lauren. My name is Marlene Moffett, and we've been communicating. Is there an update to the last community report that had a lot of inaccuracies, and the timeline was ongoing, and we asked for some benchmark dates, which I think the county also was looking for more dates when projects were going to be drawing closed.
The community involvement plan, you want to take that, Jason?
Yes.
Referring to the CIP.
I'm not sure which one you're asking about.
The last time we met.
Right.
Okay, the CIP had inaccurate legislative contacts. It had inaccurate data on who was actually responsible for things. And that was done by a vendor, according to what you told us. So I was wondering if those contacts have been updated.
No, that would be me. No, I haven't had a chance to talk to them. I have any sites.
Those people would be here if we contacted the correct people, correct?
No, actually, if our people are contacted, I'm with external affairs. That's my job here. I am a CIC, but I'm also with external affairs. The other half, what we do is community involvement. So I come out to sites, I do all what we do for community involvement. The other half is congressional, mayors, governors, media. They do the whole, and I advise them. And from my understanding, the person that's in charge of that told me that he's been telling people, he's been advising, that's better to say, he's been advising officials, and nobody's ever gained interest. So he didn't advise them of this, and I let them know on the 3rd, but then I told them to, so he did advise them a few days ago. But
The reason I'm asking is Commissioner Ronas was listed as the person in charge.
Right.
And it's Commissioner Ramsey's district.
Okay.
And Lawrence is here for Commissioner Ramsey.
Okay.
And to keep everything moving, we need the correct people here. Pollution control had never been contacted.
Right.
I've never been contacted to be even invited here, and I come to every meeting.
The normal people we invite, well, not the normal people, that's the people we add to the mailing list. In this situation, the mailing list started out with the inner circle of that waterway. And that's how it grew. Now, it grows every time we have a meeting, we add those names. So I can definitely add your names. When it comes to agencies, normally, and I was advising the nice lady there from the pollution department, I don't notify them. What my XA does, they notify the mayor or the county commissioners, and it's their job, or we advise them, you let them know what people they want to come. We don't choose,
I understand, but
agency or
the
county
list
can
was
have 20
inaccurate.
different.
That was my point. The list was inaccurate.
I understand that, and I'm sorry, but I will correct that. I have 8 sites. Last week I was in Louisiana with the hurricane. I haven't had a chance to get to it, but I promise I will. Actually, next week I won't be able to do it, but the week before I will correct that. And then it will go online, and then also we send it to the repository. It doesn't, we don't actually send it out to homes, so I will correct that. Is there?
I've got a couple of questions. First, I'd like to understand, note that it seems like the project managers are getting to be younger than the project. Anyways, so a couple things. One is when y'all started, the TCEQ was handling everything. And TCEQ had put together a 3D model. And they also had a plume drawing, which was fairly accurate because they were doing a lot of testing back in that time. And so I guess my first question is are you going to utilize the TCEQ data in your one? And so also, what is the half-life of PCE and vinyl chloride in groundwater?
I'm not sure if I know that off the top of my head.
I guess it depends. Is it aerobic or anaerobic? It's pretty stable in aerobic environments. When it goes anaerobic, it would degrade quicker. I don't know the half-lives, I'm sure we can look it up. In regards to project managers, you know, I use them. They retire. But I'm looking to hire. I'm looking to hire. Just interviewed like 7 people last week, and you know they're all right out of college. A lot of them are very experienced. So I'm always looking to replenish my project managers. But Lauren's fantastic. She's a great project manager. Has a great background in hydrogeology, and I'm happy she's working on this project. Samson will be coming on as Lauren takes off on leave shortly. Has worked on water treatment plants. He's also very proficient. But again, I'm constantly looking for great new talent, and they're not always, you know, a lot of them come with a lot of experience. In regards to half-life, it really depends on the conditions in the aquifer. If it's anaerobic or aerobic, it'll be different. But PCE is relatively stable. It'll hang around. That's why it's persistent. So generally, it's persistent in the subsurface. We can't change the conditions to help break it down like we did with the in-situ bio injections. We change the conditions of the formation so that the bacteria can break down the contaminants in place. So not exactly your question. It's not an exact answer for half-life. Yes. You had another question?
So my comment was not degrade interviewing. It was only to point out how good this project is.
Chris, Jackie says she knows that.
ATSPR, who, well, this is debatable, but 100 days is the half-life in air, and then 30 to 300 because of the variation.
So the half-life is 100 days in air, and then 30 to 300 days in groundwater, depending on the specific setting.
I was curious, we're having these floods around the area. What are they doing? You know, we're taking, you have a program where you had 144 people accepting water from the mud. What are they doing? They're sucking the water out of the ground too. What are they doing about it? Are they going to have the same problems that the individual people have?
You want to answer?
Basically, we're under the guidelines of the TCEQ.
Hold on 1 second.
At this point, we are tested frequently by the TCEQ, and everybody in the city of Houston and area will be going to surface water. We're on the agenda for that, which will be within this year. At this point, our water is safe. I hope that we provide safe water for people that are using it.
Speak up.
We can't hear you, I'm sorry. We're trying to provide a good product. Is that better?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yes. We are tested by the TCEQ very frequently. Our water is deemed to be safe. We want to provide a product to our residents as well as the people that we are providing it to. This is a tough situation that everybody's in. And we just want to be helpful, but we will be going to surface water within this year. There are very many people in the city of Houston and the surrounding areas, all the muds, will be going to surface water. So, we'll code ours.
It's only a few years late though, isn't it?
At this point, I still feel good about the water that we're taking out of the ground. And it's been shown through the tests that ours.
I don't believe what you're saying.
What's your opinion?
Yep, and that's yours.
Does anybody have any other questions? Have a comment?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Victoria Matias. I'm the Community Coordinator for Texas Health and Environment Alliance. Our mission focuses on empowering community to participate in the public process of historical toxic waste sites. And first of all, I want to thank you for being here tonight and hosting this meeting for the community. However, we do need more involvement of the community from the EPA. We go door to door around the Superfund area, and we continue to find people that are unaware of the existence of the site, let alone that they live above the groundwater plume. And recently, we surveyed some of the local residents, and some of the input we received repeatedly is that they would like more frequent communication from the EPA. Some of them recommended a newsletter or information by mail. Some are even open to email, more community meetings. Whatever works, the important thing that the community is needing is effective communication from the EPA. So my question is, what is your plan for community engagement moving forward?
Did you ask people within the water line, or did you ask outside?
Both.
And people within the water line said, we didn't communicate.
That is correct. Very few people received the notice for this meeting. This is a perfect example.
Right, within the water line.
Correct.
I don't think that's true. I honestly don't, because
Then go walk the doors.
I have many times.
When was the
I
last
have
time?
actually come from Dallas to do that. I don't live here.
When?
But Raji and I, I'm sorry, the last time we did it in 19.
I saw it on the news.
Yeah, the last time we did it in 19.
In
Yeah,
19.
COVID stopped us.
Okay.
Okay.
Yesterday's news.
It was my posting.
Yeah, I'm not being offensive or anything, I'm just saying, I know the mailing list is specifically for the inside of the water line.
So actually, survey the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who here lives in that water line area, and who that is here, who lives in that area, heard from the EPA directly about this meeting? And raise your hands if you live in the water line area.
If it was on the news, they
Is
all
it
know.
EPA? Oh, from the EPA?
Okay, so please raise your hand if you live within the line that's in this map. Okay, and keep it up if you received something in your mailbox, specifically, in your mailbox, from the EPA.
Some hands went there.
So, of the 3 hands that I counted, only 1 stayed up. So that means that 2 out of 3 did not receive it.
I would have to look at their addresses.
I think we need to do better. right? We can always do better. Are they on the list? Our intent is to notify people of these meetings. If we can do better, we will. Let's do better. You know, we're going to have more of our presence out here to start doing more field work, need access. You know, we can certainly take the information you provided us to add it to our mailing list. We're going to do other things as well. Our goal is to make sure you're informed. We can do better.
Harris County Commission on Control Services has consistently commented on the 5-year review that for the Jones Road sites, but we did not receive information about this meeting from EPA. Instead, received it from the
Well, we do better. I mean, we have a media involvement program, we have outreach folks, and can we take people who sign up and make sure they're notified? Make sure that doesn't happen again. I've seen you at several meetings. I'm sorry, y'all are not getting the message. We need to do better.
I live in Tower, so I'm outside the red line. But we're on the other side of the ditch from those who are contaminated in Edgewood Estates. Now, I didn't get anything from the EPA, but thank goodness EPA contacted us, put out the signs. I posted on the Tower Oaks next door some information. I even got a reply from someone in Marvin that said, who said, oh, that's been fixed years ago. And then I posted a copy of the report that Thea sent me that showed the recap of the September 10th meeting. So I don't care whether I get it from EPA or Thea. Somebody is contacting people that I know, me and others. So who cares if it's EPA or Thea? As long as you get the information. Unfortunately, we get so much junk mail. I bet people who did get information just threw it away. But I did post it on Nextdoor, and that's an active website.
Thanks for doing that. Thank you, Thea, for informing the public. We appreciate everything y'all do to notify the residents out here. You know, we didn't come to their meeting last week. We're coming out this week. Again, we'll do better. We're going to have more involvement as this next phase of the project comes on. We'll be out in the neighborhood, looking for access to sample vapor, to install wells, collect additional water samples. We'll be here. Again, we didn't come out last week, but we were coming out this week. So, if we sign up on the list, we could certainly make sure that people get notifications of the meetings going forward. As long as you left information on there, we'll add you to our mailing list. That's for sure. Right, Jason? Yes.
A quick question. Those wells that you test and you note that there is contamination, are they then sealed? And my question is if this plume seems to move because water does move. If one property owner has contaminated water and the next door neighbor does not, and is watering their garden or their lawn, which makes it airborne, and spreading, what is the liability for the property owner that's sharing this contaminated water with the person who has done everything possible to protect themselves and their family? I know you're not a lawyer, okay? But I'm just saying, someone has to protect somebody.
Well, I will say one of the wells that did have exceedances in the residential community did choose to sign up for the public water supply. So their well has been plugged. We plugged 3 other wells, so 4 total in the area. And a big reason we do that is to prevent any kind of further migration of contaminants, like drawing that plume further out. We also plug old wells because a lot of times they degrade and they're corroded, and they can act as a conduit from shallower groundwater with contamination to deeper groundwater. But I don't know about the enforceability of that. But I will say, we haven't tested.
The mic close to your mouth.
Thank you. We have enacting exceedances for the outdoor air that we have tested, and if you are concerned about that, you can reach out and we can put you on the sampling agenda.
Are y'all still putting out filters?
So the EPA never actually distributed filters. That was the TCEQ, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, but at this time, no, we are not providing filters because we provide connection to that public water supply.
Could I ask that you go back to the chart that had the data from the wells? And would that be easy enough to do? I think it was just prior. Yes, there it is. I do want to thank EPA again for being here. And I also want to point out, I appreciate that you have some real limitations in what the Superfund statute and other federal statutes do and don't allow you to do in terms of solving the problems of concern to the community. But I'm looking at this in particular. I heard some reference to being safe. And I'm assuming what is meant is that the water tested below the MCL standards that EPA is allowed to, and others allowed to enforce for drinking water in public water supplies. And so a consideration is that applies to larger public water supplies. EPA is limited in their ability to shut down a private well that has numbers that come up above that standard. So that's just a clarification. Does that reflect your understanding of the MCLs and what you can do or not do?
Well, you're right, the MCLs apply to public water supplies.
Right.
We apply them to Superfund cleanups. They're called relevant and appropriate requirements.
Okay.
People are using it for consumption. So we're able to apply the standard for public water supply to the water that's coming out of the ground at private wells.
Right. And in setting those standards, certainly they're designed to consider protecting public health, but in setting those, cost and feasibility of the available technology comes into play as well. There are also, they're not on here, MCLG's goals, which, they're for carcinogenic products set at 0, and recognizing that 0 is often really not a practical step. The enforceable standard is set higher. And so I see the MCLs there. I'm trying to read, I know you have non-detects with the U's. I'm trying to read for the vinyl chloride whether the non-detect level that's there is a 3 or a 5.
It's a 2?
The MCL is a 2. What's here? It looks to me like it says 5.
For vinyl chloride?
Yes. At less than.
Oh, that's just what I get back from the laboratory.
Right. So my point here is, it seems for vinyl chloride that the laboratory testing method is testing at a level that's higher than the enforceable MCL.
Yeah, I'm not a chemist, but I do know they can detect below that 5. Like you can see here, we have 1, 1.8. So they can detect below that. I can reach out to the lab and get clarification why they use that.
No, but where they have the values, it looks like it's mostly higher. Let me check. I'm just looking at, particularly for the private wells.
Yeah, so for TC, the MCL is 5, and we had 1.4, 0.7, 2.9, and 2.3.
How about the bottom line?
We didn't have any detects.
Because the MCL is 2, and this says it's under.
But you can see here in our deep water, we did have detections of 1.8 and 1.0. But I can get clarification from the lab on why they use this specific nomenclature.
that might be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, hello, good evening. Thanks for being here. My name is Ruth Giles. I'm the Education and Research Coordinator for Texas Health and Environment Alliance. And part of our main focus is educating the local community about the potential dangers of this site and how they can protect themselves. We request EPA issue a time-critical removal action by providing water filters to each home above the plume of contamination. This site is deemed one of 5 in the nation that is not protected of human health. Something must be done now to protect the residents above the plume, who use this water to bathe their children, drink their coffee, water their gardens, they eat their fruit and vegetables from those gardens, brush their teeth, and so on. High activated carbon filtration is an effective solution that could be implemented while the EPA goes on through the process of determining the best long-term remedy of the Superfund site, which we do not have a goal and date still. The process of determining where all the contaminants are and how to clean up, and then actually cleaning them up, can take decades. Again, I'm hoping again for that date that you gave us, down the road 4 years. People are living in this area and need protecting immediately and now.
The best long-term solution is to get them on the public water supply. Give us access to sample your well. If you're within the waterline area, even if we haven't sampled your well, we've made the offer that we could go to the public water supply.
Okay, so if they like tonight decide, I'd like to have my well sampled, and you're like, okay.
Well, actually, but we've been saying that for years.
That's fine,
We're
but if
continuing to say
somebody
that.
decides tonight, and they give you the information, you will go ahead and do that
We'll
then.
add you to the list for wells to sample, for sure.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. That's why we're here. We
Yeah,
want that data. We want to, people haven't given us access. If they have, we'll sample their well. If there's an issue, well, even if there's not an issue, if you're within that waterline district, you say, I want to be hooked up to the public water supply. We're going to work with you up to the public water supply. Now, it doesn't happen overnight. But we've been making that offer and continue to make that offer. So that's the best solution for the public water supply at this moment.
I have a piggyback question of what you just said. So how are you reaching out to the residents to get that permission to go on their property? Because we just established that most people are not getting any notification and communication from EPA. So I'm just wondering how you are engaging the community for them to give you the access that you need to help them.
We've done it before, we'll do it again. I've gone door to door, we sent mail. I don't know about mailers, but I know we've knocked the doors, knocked for access to sample. We'll continue to do it. People don't always give us access, and that's perfectly, that's their right. They don't have to give us access to come on their property or sample their wells, it's up to them. But we ask, and if they give it to us, then they'll be on our list to sample.
How about a billboard or some signage for the people in that area, in the Jones Road and Cypress North Houston area? You would get people to respond that maybe have a gated home.
Yeah, so we are planning that big remedial investigation feasibility study. That 2028 date is just to complete that study. It's not to actually create a remedial design or remedial action. That will take years beyond that. But as part of that contract, we will be reaching out to homeowners again to get access for all the additional sampling that we have planned. I have been out in the community over the last couple months, and I was approached by 3 different property owners, and 2 of them gave us access, and we got them sampled just recently in August. So if you do want your well sampled or your indoor air, you can reach out to me, and we can get you on the list. Yes.
Been to several of these meetings and signed up, and you know, set up like that, how water sample. How many times you have to ask? I'm outside the restaurant.
So you're
How many
outside.
times you have to ask before it actually gets done?
Yeah, so,
You want to rephrase this question again?
okay, yeah, he was asking,
Well, I've been to about the 3rd, 4th of these meetings. I've signed up every time, and I've asked to have my water sampled. And I just wondered how many times you have to ask before it actually gets sampled.
I guess that's a good clarification. We're at this time only offering that if you're within the water line service area.
So I just purchased a home in the Tower Road subdivision, which is just outside of your water line service area, which means your long-term solution of getting hooked up is not an option for me. And it sounds as though after coming to this meeting that our water and air is not entirely without contamination. So what would be an option for someone in my position?
Yeah, I guess it would be to reach out to, I have an email that I've sent another property owner that if you want, I can send it with you. It has a bunch of information. There's like a groundwater well-owning community that has access to different sampling and can give you information on where to take your water to the sample or have someone else. But yeah, at this time, EPA is only offering that within the water line area because we don't have any evidence to support contamination from the site is migrating off outside of that boundary.
Yeah, just 1 second. Let me get to this question and then I'll come to you next, ma'am.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Rachel Jordan. I'm the Assistant Director of EPA. Thank you again for being here tonight and hosting this meeting. As you mentioned earlier, the SVE system is shut down during like the fall, winter months as like weatherization or winterization of this of the equipment. Is the EPA planning to shut down the equipment again this fall, or are they? Is the agency looking at taking steps to actually winterize the equipment in a way that allows it to stay operating through the colder months?
No, at this time, EPA will continue to winterize through those cold months to prevent any kind of freeze damage. The system is behind the shopping center. It's quite a robust system, but it includes a lot of piping and that comes out of the ground and goes into that system. So just to prevent damage to the system, it is shut down. But it is restarted again in the spring, and they continue to monitor it and check on it throughout the winter.
It was mentioned earlier that on these systems you can get a rebound. So you can pump it, and the concentrations go down, and then it looks like we're there, shut it off, come back, and you'll have a rebound. So that's one of the reasons you can shut it off. We want to make sure, we want to test it so that when it rebounds, maybe it rebounds less the next time we do it. We're continuing to evaluate that as part of our SVE system. We are looking, we did plan money to continue that contract next year. So, we plan budgets every year. That was one of the items that we identified for ongoing funding was the SVE system.
So I noted that you guys shut it down in September last year. Is that the same plan to shut it down this
I think we'll
month?
probably continue to operate it a little further. It got shut down in September of last year because we did those in situ bioremediation injections. I'm not sure. That's a conversation. I'll have to talk with the contractor, but as of right now, it's still operating and we have no intention to shut it down in September.
Okay, thank you.
May I comment on someone who lives in Tower Oaks, just moved in? We are not in the plume. Matter of fact, Thea sent some information out showing the plume, and the plume is on the other side of the big ditch that runs behind Glenora. Are you familiar with that since you're new? Okay. So we're west. I'm not good at that. So that's one thing. Thea has been my lifeline. I mean, I know you guys work hard and all that, but Thea, I had the first meeting when Thea notified, I signed up with Thea a long time ago. The first meeting that was held in Tower Oaks was held at my house. And then other neighbors took over. We had a total of 3 or 4 meetings in Tower Oaks so that, and we signed up a lot of people to be tested. And so I don't know why there's, the EPA, but I know with Thea, there was no trouble getting tested. So I can thank Thea.
Thank you, Maureen.
So there any more questions? It's coming up on 8.
Yes. I have another question. I have a question. On your handout, you have, it says for more information, you have 3 individuals listed. Now, who's the primary contact for residents?
I guess it depends on what you're looking for. I'm the project manager, so if it has to do with the site and information about the site, you can contact me. If you have information about community involvement, you can contact Jason, and then I'm not sure who the third person on the the state. Then that's Diane Britt. She is my counterpart for the state of Texas, and she helps me on this project as well.
What about the gentleman?
Chris, he is my supervisor, so if you need to talk to him, that's okay too. You can just let me know and I'll forward it up the chain.
Okay, great. And one last comment. You guys have a tough job. But I must point out, the residents and the community have a tougher job because they live it. So again, hate to harp on this, but they need information in a timely manner, milestones. Again, what I'm saying, this is a forever project.
So I will say, yes, we need to do better, yes, like Chris said. And unfortunately, groundwater takes a really long time to remediate, but we are working towards that goal. And that starts with that big RIFS, that remedial investigation that we're going to be starting soon.
It's my understanding that the EPA has a bus that has an arm that can detect vapors. What are the odds of getting that into the Tower Oaks, the Plume, that whole community, Mile Drive, that entire community, and let's get that arm going and see what you might find.
That's the trace air gas analyzer on the top unit. It's the name of that unit. And it can collect data in real time. It can collect subslab data from deep control. We need access to that, access to sample that. We are planning to collect a lot of additional vapor samples, again, on people that live over the plume, if it gives us access. It just basically carries the instrumentation to the back of the unit, is what it is. We need access again from everyone who wants their airplane sample to do that. But we would still need to get access, we still need to get access to the subslab. We are planning on using the other instrumentation, the traditional method for vapor. POG is a good tool, but it can't give me subslab data unless I have access to the subslab, which I need an access agreement and a port, basically drill a hole for your foundation to put that in. So all that would need to be done up front. You could coordinate and advertise it without collect the data, or collect the data using SUMA canisters or different types of collection instruments and run it to our lab, which is located here in Houston. We have a lab, local lab that can do that analysis of collection. You just have to coordinate with them to just do that.
I want to piggyback off his question about the more information. And thank you guys again for being here. And I know, Lauren, you're the RPM, the mural project manager, but you will be leaving on maternity leave. Congratulations. And I want to know, when will we be getting Samson's information for contact since you won't be available?
Yeah, we'll probably update the website once I go out on leave. Also, I'll have my way notifications on since I'll still be an employee. So it'll provide, if you email me, it'll provide that information as well, or Chris's, and then he can forward it on.
You can ask me and I can give this information.
Yeah. It's also just like,
And it's public information.
Yeah.
What's your phone extension? Yeah, what's the extension? 214-665. 2726. Samson.
so only two different from mine. So.
We'll update, I mean, Lauren will have an out message when she's on leave to identify for Jones Road, or automate when people are out. Their messages will come, they'll forward their messages to me, and then I'll take it from there.
I have a question
question, since TCEQ, since the state is here, and some residents have asked us about the state or EPA putting water filters on homes, and previously TCEQ did this. Is that something at this site, with EPA being the lead, is that something that TCEQ has the ability to support in? Like the state's budget, rather than just federal tax dollars?
You know, my name is Terry Andrews, and I work with TCEQ. You know, when we were putting the filters on the wells, it was a new site. We were finding, you know, we were trying to figure out where the contamination was. Where we found a contaminated private well, we were offering filtration systems. That was then. This is now. The project is in a much different state now. You know, they've delineated the contamination pretty well. They tried to get out to people to have their wells sampled. You know, filtration is not the fix-all.
No,
because you're still pumping water. You might direct the water in places where you may not want the water to go. The best solution is, as I sit here, I don't know as much about the site as these guys do, but to me, it's just, if we could get the public to really overwhelmingly support them and give them access, and you know, and they could be able to plug what wells they can. They could get control of this system, and it would produce a more timely, you know, solution. That's what really kind of needs to happen. Now, as far as we provide lots of services with the EPA, but we don't try to do things that are, you know, we try to work together, and we're in step. And their policy right now of not offering filtration, but instead offering to connect people to the public water system is probably the best way to go. But
Yeah, I know, that just hasn't been working. So, you know, people need protection now, so folks are starting to ask us about that. But I agree with you. Thank you, Terry.
I just wanted to comment on an item that I don't think has been addressed in a lot of detail at this meeting, which is again emphasizing the importance of getting those private water wells in that area closed, because that's what's making the contamination move. And I know there's been a lot of discussion. People are concerned about, is my water safe? But another concern about this site is the migration and the degradation of that contamination that occurred over 15 years. And if we're going to stop it moving, we have to have the ways to stop pumping in that area. And I think about half of the people, maybe slightly more, within the defined plume have chosen to connect to the public water supply. But again, I think it's an issue of beyond just, is my water safe, which of course people are going to worry about, is how do we best protect the public in this area? And that's another purpose of, again, limiting the migration of this contamination. So just bringing that to people's awareness.
All right, folks, we actually told the school we'd be out by 8, so we're a little past that. Thank you all for coming.